Goblin Slayer is a dark fantasy based on the light novel of the same name and was released in 2018 by Studio White Fox. In a world where all sorts of adventurers join guilds to take on contracts to earn money and work their way up the ranks, Goblin Slayer focuses on one individual, Goblin Slayer. He does one thing and one thing only, and you better believe he knows his stuff. He won't stop until every single goblin on the face of the planet is wiped out forever. I don't recall the last time I saw a story that followed someone who's already a master of their craft. Typically, you'll have the young and naive protagonist who must work their way up through training, or you'll have a master who teaches an apprentice. But Goblin Slayer never fully fell into either of these categories. Sure, he forms a party with a young and naive girl, but his role will always remain kill goblins. That's the #1 priority. There's nothing for him to learn because he already knows everything that he needs to. That's not to say he doesn't learn other things or grow from anything, as I think that's part of any good story. He's not perfect nor the most sociable, and people think he's weird, though it's not as if he cares. He reminds me a lot of Master Chief from the Halo games, a strong, mostly silent and faceless protagonist who's just an absolute badass in every way, shape, and form. Despite not seeing their face or hardly uttering any words, just their presence alone is enough to strike fear into those who stand in their way. There's always been a mystique which intrigues an audience when you hide a character's face and refuse to show it. Sometimes it's just covering the mouth, sometimes it's covering the eyes, and other times it's the whole face. From slasher flicks to kids' cartoons, some of the most talked about conversations come from a simple mystery which likely holds no significance. It's a guy wearing a mask. What do you expect to be underneath it all? It doesn't matter. Perhaps it's the feeling of questioning whether or not they're human in the first place. Are they man or machine or a monster themselves? Hiding such a simple detail goes a long way, and people don't like having an incomplete picture. The characters are alright, and there's nothing special about them that really makes them stand out. But let's be real here. If you're watching Goblin Slayer, it's to see Goblin Slayer slay goblins. And he's the standout star of the show, as he should be, which of course leads to learning the most about him. My favorite thing about it is it doesn't have some grandiose story of a hero trying to save the world from an inevitable death. It's the story of a single man and his hatred for goblins. The goblins in this world are seen as stupid, weak, and beginner enemies. We've all seen this type of enemy no matter which game you play. The fodder that just add to the numbers of the thing you're attacking. They're not taken seriously in the slightest. You just brush right past them because they seem so weak. But in this world, that ignorance is what'll get you killed, or worse. Goblin Slayer is the only character who takes these creatures seriously. He never underestimates them, he knows what they can and will do, and he shows no mercy when it comes to eradicating them. And let me tell you, there are many ways to kill goblins. The most jarring thing about this series to me was the tone. It's a dark fantasy and things can get quite dark. But the next thing you know, everyone's gathered around a table having a grandiose time without a care in the world. Everyone's drinking beer, patting each other on the back. You've got that flute music going on. Such dramatic shifts really take me out of the mood of the series, and I think it hinders what would have made an incredible dark fantasy. When it was airing, I remember seeing headlines about it, and I'd constantly be seeing Goblin Slayer mentioned, although I never knew why. I didn't read any of the articles or pay any attention to what was going on with the series. So I just presumed that it was a really good series, which was why I was seeing so many people talk about it, which was why I decided to watch it in the first place. And episode 1, if you've watched this show, then you know exactly what I'm referring to. Talk about first impressions. It had me hook, line, and sinker. I knew exactly why it was making headlines, for better or for worse. I don't want to do you any disservice if you've not seen it, but give the first episode a watch and you'll know exactly whether or not the show is for you.